Fuck that shit. Listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning. Just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody knows it. Cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless.
Hey guys, welcome back to What's the Situation, the place where we're serving up our unfiltered opinions. Today, I've got Catherine and Bianca joining me, and today is all about business and entrepreneurship. Before we get into it, make sure that you hit the follow button so you don't miss any of our unfiltered opinions. I promise it's going to be worth it. So just jumping in, I've had so many people write us about it, and I asked people, what do you want to hear on this episode about business? And there were some really great questions. One thing that a lot of people had questions about was the getting started thing. And so with us, we kind of all have different backgrounds in the entrepreneur business, different experiences that we've had. Catherine and I obviously have the Gatorbug now, and Bianca's on the team and big part of that. Before that, Catherine worked with a woman who had started her own boutique in Atlanta, and now she represents also another clothing brand line. So you really get to see kind of all of our opinions in different perspectives. Bianca started a business with her sister and kind of did more like, what would you say, like shows and pop-ups and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more like the vendors,
Yeah.
like vendor markets and
Yeah.
stuff.
And then, my background before Gatorbug was really with Gatorbug before on the Etsy realm. And that was just something I kind of stumbled into and kind of grew into that. So you're going to get a lot of different pieces of advice from all different perspectives. I feel like this is a good one. But again, one of the main questions was, getting a business started. And I feel like this is such an overwhelming task when you're starting a business. I don't know what y'all thought, Bianca, especially with your sister. I feel like we've all got the family
Mhm.
aspect included in our business.
Yeah, I mean, she handled most of that, and I hate to say that, like, I'm very, like, not well-versed in all of that back end stuff, so she handled, like, all the tax stuff, how to, set up all those accounts and things, but it was a lot
Yeah.
of stuff.
I think like when you're talking about first starting up a business too, is really diving into like why and
Mhm.
what and who. Like who's it going to serve? Why are you doing it? And how are you going to do it? What's kind of y'all's advice for that, part of it?
I like you had talked about testing your product in a kind of like a limited capacity, but like doing it very judiciously. And I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
So, for example, retail, you can go online before you have a brick and mortar, do that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think finding out, too. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different, that's the thing about it is like when I'm looking at these questions that people are asking, I'm like, it's so hard to even fit it just in like, let's say a long episode podcast of like an hour and a half. I'm like, I could talk about each one of these things for like 4 hours and we still
Yeah.
wouldn't even scrape the surface. I think, my advice for first starting out is hitting out like, why are you doing it? Who are you going to serve and what are you looking for out of it? Because so many times I think you'll start with a business and it's like, okay, and I'm just using our kind of our, genre for that, like a boutique is so many people, I love clothing. I love a lot of fucking things too, and you don't see me doing that. You know what I mean? Like, just because you love something doesn't mean it's your calling for doing it. And I think,
Yeah.
especially in this past year, I don't know if you guys can kind of see it on our end of like, there's been so many boutiques that have had to close down because you start off and you're like, oh, fashion, that's fun. Like, let me start up a boutique. And the problem with that is that it is literally like 10% fashion. You've got so much on the back end. Kind of the story behind this is Catherine had started the boutique back in January when our grandmother had passed away.
Yeah.
And I joined her in July when she opened. So like, what was your why to opening up the Gatorbug?
I think I knew, coming from an undergraduate background of textiles at NC State, that evidently I was going to go into this. Either I was going to buy for a big company like Bergdorf's and then open a boutique. It just so happened that this was the first thing to open its door. And so I had to change my plans a little bit. But I remember it taking me like a solid 6 weeks to figure out what exactly I wanted to do within owning a boutique. product variability. There's so much that goes into it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think too, the other thing is like, who are you going to serve? Because so many times, like, we were talking about some other, business ideas and you start really digging into it and you're like, okay, well, the location matters. Are you going to do it online? Like, who are you going to serve in those locations? And like, will your product or your service be good for
Mhm.
that area?
I think that's one of the hardest things is finding, who you want to target because sometimes who you want to target is not your ideal customer.
For sure.
And I think that that is something that can be difficult to navigate, especially when you're so passionate about what it is that you're doing, whether that's clothes or food, whatever the case may be. But really honing in on that, I feel like is a really big piece of, creating your business and making it successful. But it's hard as fuck to figure that out. And it's trial and error.
And you're so right, Bianca. I think that's one of the biggest things I like to tell the girls. We serve a lot of our employees are college age, and they're dipping their toes. And I think the biggest thing I think we could impart on them is kind of figuring out whatever you do, if it's owning a boutique, if it's you're opening a bar, who are you serving and why? And who do you think is your target audience? And like you said, Bianca, location is everything. I remember that being, I think, the biggest burden when I opened
It is.
Gatorbug again
Mhm.
was well, we can't open in Raleigh. That's not where the spots were open. It was down at the beach. And who was I going to serve down there? There already are great boutiques. How is that going to look? Was it going to impact our buying? And obviously,
I think that's something that we've kind of learned too is like when you're opening up and you want to do something like I think, obviously we started at a higher end price point.
Mhm.
But the problem too with things is that you can want that and then you start opening it up. And I think one of my pieces of advice is really research your comps, like who are your competitors? Is the market already taken care of? Because you
Yeah.
might love doing that, but if it's already being served in a great way and people really love that, it's gonna take you 10 times longer to break into that market. Not saying it's not
Yeah.
doable and that there's not space for you, but it's incredibly hard because the market's already saturated in that. So you're really gonna have to work 20 times harder, have more capital, have resources, have connections and all that to really bust into that. And, at some point it does. The market is saturated. And unless you're making, especially with businesses, for us, I mean, we were going into a market that already had well-established boutiques in the area,
Yeah.
and so to hit in the same realm that they were, it's just like a numbers game. You only have, so many dollars on the table. It's like if they've been going shopping to this place for 20 years, not saying it's not possible to recruit them, but they're probably not going to go to the same place that has the same things.
Yeah.
And so it's just harder if
Exactly.
they've already built connections to be able to pull people away.
Absolutely. And I feel like the one thing, Sydney, and I would love to have, you weigh in on this is location with that too. You touched on that a
Yeah.
lot, but where our store is now, that's those price points that we once brought in, that's not a area that they want to see those price points when they go shopping. And so really doing your due diligence on where you're opening is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
And
I think
especially
too.
like where we are now, like that was a newer shopping center. So really,
You
you
would
guys
think
didn't have much to compare,
mm-mm,
So
No. And then, honestly, when you look at the rest of the stores, they're national brands that were a lot more affordable, even though they were higher price points. Like, what is it? Altered State. I mean, some of the dresses they have there are 150 that we know that we sell for like 70, but
yeah,
they have a national brand behind them. They've got the marketing, the recognition, all that stuff. So if you're walking into the Gator Bug on what we were selling before, with like these, it's funny because I think people think designer brands or like Louis Vuitton or these high, but there's designers out there that are in that 2 to 500 range. And
yeah,
so here we are, like these are designer brands where they have curated these prints. They're going above and beyond to make sure that, the fabrics are there. But from a consumer's eye, if you're going across the street and getting a $50 top and you walk into our store and you're getting a $200 top and we're brand new to that luxury market or like a higher end market, we're not appealing to the masses. So I think, generally we really had to sit down and be like, okay, where can we cut and get more in line with
yeah,
our typical consumer walking through the door?
yeah.
exactly.
Because you can want that all you want, but if it's not working, you're not going to be open. And so I think that was
Mm-mm.
something that we definitely learned. And I think with getting started too, the other side of that is researching your competitors and seeing the market for that
Yeah.
and what's going to set you apart.
Like,
That's a big one.
yeah,
Because
it
again,
is
it's just like harder.
brand identity. How are you going to set
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people skip that step. like doing the market research and like really actually diving deep into it.
For sure. Or I feel like they do it on the wrong end where they start
Yeah.
trying to copy people,
Yes,
and it's like,
exactly.
you're not gonna be able to do that, you know? There's a difference from getting inspiration from other brands, but when you
Yes.
start copying people, people realize that and acknowledge that, and then it's kind of like, you wanna have your own thing. Even if you're drawing inspiration from other brands, I think it's just a different ballgame. Then you kinda set yourself out from other people. With that, getting started, one thing that after doing the business and taking a step back, and there are so many things that we already had because we already knew what to do with me owning the Gator Bug initially, and then, Catherine's dad starting a business. We had a leg up on a lot of people for
Mhm.
starting a business.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that I just wrote down when I was thinking about this is those basic things that we overlook because we're excited to start. And so some of my notes were like, and I see this across the board, so many businesses doing this and not thinking about this is like you come up with a name, okay? And you're just stuck on that name. Like we have the
Mhm.
Gator Bug. The Gator Bug literally ties nothing into fashion. Like from an SEO point, it's a nightmare. You know,
Yeah.
from
God.
a brand recognition, it was a family name and we just kept it and it was like, We're running with this." But, for other people who are starting businesses, think about your brand and how people are going to visualize it.
Yeah.
One, is the name already taken? Because let's say tomorrow you blow up overnight. Everybody wants a secret answer to how businesses grow. Sometimes it's just luck. Sometimes you're in the right place at the right time
Yeah.
and it just hits. And I've seen this across the board is people start off with a name that's so generic. Everybody has the damn name. You could go on Instagram. You want to make sure that your business name is clear, concise, and no, like not 1,000 different people have it. When you type it in
Yeah.
Instagram, do you have access to Facebook page names? Do you have access to the social medias where you're not doing like the Gatorbug dot boutique? Because if you're going searching as a customer, if I can't find you on that first thing, I'm not going to go digging for it.
Same.
One thing is like helping other businesses, with the locksmith company. Denver wanted to start that. And so sitting down and thinking about a name, we did Unlock RDU because you just start going through all the different things. And it's like, as a consumer, if I'm locked out of my house or locked out of my car, what am I going to do? In Google, I'm going to type in either locksmith or unlock services in Raleigh, Durham, and so
Yeah.
then it's going to pop up and that SEO is just so easy to do that. And I've seen that firsthand really change how things like come up with search engines, the trademark. We have Gatorbug trademark.
Mhm.
That's a process in on itself, like,
It's not for the faint of heart. That is a
I think,
laborious process.
yeah, making sure other people don't have that. Oh, the one thing that we did learn the hard way, logo, a legible logo.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, in making sure that you can see all the words, you can spell it backwards to forwards, and
And
because it
not just you, other people. Bianca, did you see you saw our first logo, right?
I
Gatorbug,
think
the gator was adorable. In the handwriting, it was gorgeous, and we knew what it was, but other
yeah.
people who didn't know the brand were like, "What will we
What the
get?
fuck?
Gator Borg? Gator
Yeah.
Boy?"
Gatorberg, Bug.
That was and then, just like
Yeah.
you don't think about the things on, like, how it's gonna go on a sticker. Like, is it gonna go on a circular sticker where it's, like, not, like,
Yeah,
minuscule and you have to see a microscope, view?
Mhm.
That was rough, and, after you spend, like, $20,000 on signage just for
Mm.
your storefront and someone comes in and is like, "What's the name? Gator Boy?" No, just
stain.
people have thought it was a children's store. I mean, it's a family thing, so it works for
Mhm.
us on that, but if you're not tied into the sentimentals, really think about that business name.
Mm.
I think a business plan is super important. Etch it all out. I mean, there's so many different kinds of business plans. I don't think you have to go and spend, 9 months creating a business plan,
Yeah.
depending on what you're doing. But I think definitely having one, what are you looking to get out of it? So many people start businesses and I think they set out and they're just like, okay, I'm just going to do this and see where it goes. Like, how are you going to handle money coming in? How are you going to pay yourself? Are you hiring people? How much is that going to do? How many, like How much money do you have to keep yourself afloat for 6 months? I feel like there's just so many different things. Like people don't realize, like, when you are renting out a space, that there's so many other fees associated in that, and there's so many responsibilities to that. Know what leash you're signing. As someone who has
Yeah.
been in the business side of commercial things and then resident, like leasing out, I know both sides. So I know how to pick through a lease better than anybody, but I know what I'm looking for in that,
Yeah.
and so, but so many of my friends call me all the time and they're like, "Hey, I signed this lease and I'm responsible for this." I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, well, I'm going to try to get out of it." I was like, "Good luck, because that ain't going to happen." It's just like things like that. Know what you're signing. But I feel like those were some of my main things, is like, get a plan together, know how much you're going to spend, pay yourself too. Like, build a business that you're paying yourself. Because if you're not building a business paying yourself, you will never make money,
No,
or
no,
you'll be like working five
Exactly.
jobs, and it's like, then it's a hobby.
absolutely. I also think find a mentor too. If that's not something that is in your wheelhouse, you don't maybe
Hmm.
have the best support system, maybe a parent or a spouse or a sibling. If you have a teacher or a friend that you've watched do something, definitely reach out. It's 10 times out of 10, they're going to help you. I think
For
Sydney
sure.
loves to help when people come to her. I've got enjoyment out of this recently. It's imperative.
And I love, like, the consulting thing is really, I just love business
Hmm.
as a whole. So, finding someone who can help you do the consulting, whether you're like leaning on people for advice here and there, or like hiring a consultant for that. One feedback on that is actually listening and taking the advice of that. So many people are like, okay, yeah, no. So it's any time you're hiring a company or a consultant, it's like you've actually got to do the things that they're telling you to do, or it's not going to work. Another thing is building systems,
Hmm.
because as your business grows, you don't know if it's going to take a year or a week.
Hmm.
Sometimes just being early to building out those systems, like employee handbooks. Like the second that I came on board, I started writing on an employee handbook, because I knew if we're hiring people, what takes up time is constantly having to go back to those
Yep.
little things and setting a standard for it. So if you already have your standard and you already know what the standard is, I think that's important. And,
So,
we're always constantly refining our employee handbook. I think we've had like 90,000
Yeah.
things, because things that you think that are common sense pop up. And
absolutely. And things change, you grow.
yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. Bianca, what do you think? Your business was very different from ours, but someone's thinking about getting into more of a market business situation.
I think that it still aligns with just the business in general. It's just a different way of executing it. But with those, it's hard because people don't understand. Like when you do the vendor markets, like you still have to pay to be there. So when you are just starting out your business, you kind of have to budget that in and see if this is something you can actually afford. Like what you're putting into it, are you going to get it back?
Yeah.
And doing your research on, which ones are maybe a little bit more expensive or less expensive, and trying to figure out how to fit that in. But it's also a lot of marketing. We met a lot of people and we were able to find out about a lot of other different opportunities through those smaller markets, which was
Yeah.
really, really helpful for us when we had our business. But it's fun doing the vendor markets.
You just had the vendor markets, though, the pop-ups, I know we've done them. And I think from a business standpoint, you have to calculate, okay, this one might be less expensive, but maybe I'm not going to make as much money there, or, different things. And like sometimes for us, it's harder when you're at one of those pop-ups to sell clothing, because
Oh,
people
yeah.
wanna try stuff on. But there were so many ones that we did that got us out in the spotlight and networking with people. When we signed on, it wasn't necessarily for the sale right then, it was to build recognition, brand recognition.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. There were a lot of times where we would just like we would do them so often we knew, okay, this one is not going to yield us exactly what we
yeah,
want, but it was always a good turnout for the crowd and for us to market and for us to talk to people, hand out our business cards. We got a lot of online orders just that way from
Mm,
random people that we met
yeah.
from the slower markets, like that might not necessarily wanted to buy right then, but they liked our product and wanted to follow up.
For sure. I think wrapping this up too is being selective. about advice and who you go and tell. Usually, when you're excited about starting a business, you want to go out and tell everybody.
Right.
And not saying that that doesn't have a time and place, but so many people are fucking haters and they think that you might do better than them. They will just try to take any, fun
Yep.
or excitement out of you. And also, a lot of people don't know a lot of shit about things, like you might be a financial analyst, but you don't know what it is like to open A, B, and C. I think really going to people for advice and being selective about who you're going to for the advice. That's
Mm.
my tip is just being selective about who you go to for advice because everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. And at the end of the day, it's the longevity of how hard you're working with that and like building those connections and stuff
Right.
like that and positioning yourself up.
That's a good one. That's something that I didn't think about because I surround myself with people that I actually want in my life. So I don't really think about, oh, like I'm not going to tell Sydney,
Yeah,
Catherine,
yeah,
or my
yeah.
other friends stuff. So, but not everybody, has that kind of village, if you say, around them. So yeah, I think that's a great advice, great tip.
I agree. I agree. I remember that being something I think my dad, kind of instilled in both Sydney and I. And so I
Mm,
remember when I was opening up the iteration of Gatorbug again for clothing for 4 months, I said nothing. And if I did, I was very selective on who in our tribe I did tell because, back to what Sydney said, not everyone knows
mm.
everything, not everyone's a scholar, and people are mad haters.
And listen, there is bad juju out there, and I don't give a shit what anybody says or believe. There are people out there who will literally put the malarkey on you and put out bad vibes.
Bell.
It's just, yes. Sydney, what's that guy at that apartment complex with that crazy bitch with that shit, that witchy girl? Remember?
Yeah, I had this one guy who worked for me where his ex-girlfriend would hire witches to do, spell or
Literally,
like,
hexes.
yeah, hexes on him and stuff. But it is like that. But I mean, like, especially when
True.
someone like, I feel like in our group, everyone's so supportive, but I have other friends who have had friends who are like, just like, no, that's not going to work. Like everything in the
Yeah.
book and not saying
Yeah.
that you want adversity when you're or you want real feedback of like, hey, here are some things to think about. When people come to us about business advice, I'm like, listen, I'll be the first one. If you want to do it, do it. You can
Hmm.
power through anything if you got the mentality that you are going to go through hell and
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah.
most people don't have that mentality. They're like, yeah, that's great. But when you're like $30,000 deep into something and you're not getting a return on it, it's a very different thing. So
Yeah.
I think it's just about being selective with that too. But I was laughing about that.
That shit's funny
And
as
people are
fuck.
negative and also they'll talk shit about you too. My biggest piece of advice on this is I feel like most people don't fail because they started wrong or that it wasn't perfect. It's because they just didn't fucking do it. That's why they're failing is that
Yeah.
they didn't pull the trigger. You will always fail if you never put your hat in the ring on it. And so many people will wait years to like have all the stars align and it's like I think there's a general if the door opens, if you've got this and you're passionate about starting a business and you go and start moving the wheels on it and you're setting up your business plan and you're figuring out what your things are and shopping your comps and figuring out what your name is and all that stuff. If it's meant to be, the doors will open for you.
Yeah.
Maybe there might be an obstacle here and there, but what is meant to be will happen in that and I think so many people are afraid of starting because it's not going to be perfect. And so they just don't ever start. And so you're going to fail if you don't ever start it. Like, set out a amount of money that you feel comfortable with losing or that you're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is it. And let's run with it. And if it fails, it fails. And maybe later down the line, 2 years later, you'll open something else that have given you, the experience to do that. I don't know. I'm willing to risk everything on it. I'm like, let's go.
Hmm.
I think if you have the right people around you and you believe in yourself, you might fail at something, but you're bound to succeed because you've learned. You start, making your different changes and learning about things. But that just do it. Set out your business plan and do it. Do the damn
Absolutely.
thing. Okay. So another one was, what are some highs and lows of running a business?
I mean, this is endless.
I feel like it depends on the day because one day you could have that as a high and the next it could be a low. Okay. I'm just going to throw out some things. I think obviously it's a high is when you're doing well. Duh. Like this year, we've had one of our highest years. We have growth of what, 35%. That's great. That's a high.
That's shy.
Building community. I think we've definitely built a lot of community within this. And not saying, every
Um,
experience that we've had with people is great, but I think if you're authentic and you're pulling in the right people, then it will work. how it needs to. I don't think we've ever pulled in people just to rub, shoulders with people that we didn't really like or didn't
No.
fit in just to get ahead. What are some of y'all's highs?
I mean,
She's like,
I
I
feel
don't
like,
know. I'm in a low.
you know how I get. I feel like a high that personally for me is when you go through something that helps you change and grow as a person. So whether that's something positive that happened or something negative, just
That's a
having
good
that
viewpoint.
growth. Yeah. I
Because
don't even know
sometimes it
where
can
that
feel
came
like a
from.
low in the
Yeah.
meantime, and then you look back and you're like, okay, yeah, we had to go. Like honestly, what was it? Not this past July, but the July beforehand when we had to fire like 90% of our team and we were going in. I was like, damn, this really sucks.
Blows.
I was like, this really sucks. But I think had we
God.
not done that, we wouldn't have seen the success we have now.
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
that did suck. That was a low.
Yeah. I think a low for me would be when you really are so passionate about something and have like the drive and then it doesn't work out. But I feel like that's everything. I mean, that's normal.
One of my lows I will say is when you're working really hard and you are like, why is this not working out? And then when you are burnt out and just stop and then you see the sales or things go through and you're like, why the hell is it doing it now when I have been
Yeah.
working my ass off? So we're what, our 6 years in, I still haven't figured this out. So I don't know if it was like, hey, we've done all this work and then it started paying off. And then you're like, okay, then by the time you start like getting motivated again and then you start working, it's like, okay, nope,
Mhm.
none of that's working. I don't know.
That's a
That's one
good
of my
one.
cash flow is always that's a stressor,
Yeah.
especially in this industry because you're making decisions and hoping that what you're pulling in is good. And sometimes this is a thing. You could have customers be like, "Hey, we want to see this in the store," and then you bring that in and it just sits there. It's like flatlined. Not a damn thing is moving. And you're like, we need to turn that inventory. But also then from like a retail perspective, you don't want to train your customers to be like, I'm flipping everything and discounting it.
Yeah.
So shop our sale things. So we've had to get really creative with that sometimes. What do you, Catherine, for you, what are some of your highs and lows?
Say my lows were definitely the pivots that we had to make as a company, lines that we had to cut, price points that we had to usher in. And it was a low in the moment because it felt like a failure, but it wasn't. It's
Yeah.
actually one of the biggest highs I think we've been blessed with. And that's how I have to interpret it is
And
that
I know how difficult that was for you
my
too.
Yeah. It
it's a
was.
huge thing, but I'm so glad that it happened when I was in my 20s. I think that helps in so many different aspects of life, not just in this, but it has become my biggest high that we can get through anything. We can pivot, we can change. And there's a lot of beauty coming out from that.
For sure. For sure. I think, one of the biggest, business tips too is just being accepting of pivots and like when changes need to happen. And I think the quicker you're able to make those changes, like we saw, especially for a lot of businesses, I'm not just speaking of ours, but during the whole COVID thing, I mean, so many businesses really had to change how they were doing it because they were
Yeah.
losing money. So it's like, if you want to stay open, you got to do that. It's surviving.
And I think once you hurdle those, the pivots you have to make after that are so much easier. I look at lines that I've let go of over the holiday season. It's like, okay, bye. I wish you well, but you're not serving us. And it becomes a lot easier. I think anything that is a high and a low, any low has a high. It's a double-edged sword in this industry.
Yeah.
In any,
Because it can change so quickly. And I think
It
that's what
can.
people don't realize is that like one day something can be amazing and working for you, and the next it could be like no. And I think what happens
Exactly.
is when people fail, it's because they're so stuck on making that high back
Yeah.
high instead of changing where they're at with it. It's like let
Absolutely.
it go. It's where it's at. Like maybe you can make some changes. I think, another thing is for us, the talking about the highs and lows, the firing and hiring. That can be
I
a
was about to go into
big
it.
yeah.
I was gonna say that. Yeah.
It's a high when they work out and they're amazing and they're with you for the long haul and you see your community come in and talk about these girls of how
Yeah.
helpful they were, but it fucking
Firing sucks,
sucks.
it's not fun,
It's
especially because,
awful.
I feel like with Gatorbug, we really get attached to them in a sense of like, we are a family. I mean, obviously, I think we keep it professional, but at the end of the day, when you're letting someone go, it sucks. But then on the flip side, it's like, this isn't meant for them. If I'm having to fire them, something else is better out there for them and vice versa. Like, it's just not
Mhm.
working out.
Yeah.
But that's never a fun thing.
No.
No, it's not.
I think also too, what's hard is having to face the realization of making those kinds of decisions because sometimes it's like you don't want to do a for maybe selfish reasons, like the schedule, like they have to work, so you don't have to. But in reality, it's like you know that you need to be doing it because it's not right for them. Like they suck and they need to go. And
Yeah.
just kind of like facing the music on that, that can be really hard,
You're right about that.
you know.
Yeah,
But
because it's not serving anyone. When you have the wrong people in your business, it's not just if we're seeing it, other people are seeing it because then the customers come in and they're just not getting the service that they want. I always feel like as owners, if we're coming in and I'm seeing something that I already know that other people are seeing it, because usually when your boss or leader is coming in, you're going to act, okay, I need to be on top of my shit. And not saying that we're all, perfect or by any means. That's not the case, but it's like, do you care? Are you putting in the effort 90% of the time? Like, are you doing it? And so we've had to let people go and that's not been fun. But at the end of the day, like we're here to run a business. And so we have to make good decisions on that. And I guess that's going back to, just running a business is being okay with letting people go, of like not taking it personally. No one wants to be let go from a job. No one wants to have to do that. It's not fun, but it's like if people cared, they're not going to put themselves in a position to be let go.
Absolutely.
I think another low is like in moments of failure when you're not doing well. Of when you work for another company, it's so easy when something doesn't work out to go to the person above you and be like, what should I do? And when you have your own business, you are that person.
Mhm.
So when things are going bad, it is on you. Maybe you're doing everything that you could be doing, but there's no one else to go to. Like it's you who's in the driver's seat. So you can't be like, where do I need to turn? And I think a lot of times people also think with business, like highs and lows happen independently of each other. And that's not the
Mhm.
case. I mean, so many times we will be at a high on like sales and then like a low with other things. Like maybe
Yeah.
we're not all driving on the same page with each other at that moment or just different things. And so it's so conflicting because you can have them at the same time and be struggling, through those. I think another thing too is like with highs and lows is a lot of times you have this goal and you're like, okay, if I hit this, then that's going to make me feel a certain way. But the problem is there's so many different facets within that are moving that like, yeah, you hit that goal. And so often we don't think like, or take a second to celebrate us hitting that goal. And it's just like, okay, well, we've got to move on to the next one. And sometimes that can feel like a low too, because you're like, okay, I've hit that, but what now? And I think in life, as I've gotten older, I've realized you got to celebrate the small and big wins because you're just going to be on a hamster wheel. And I think that's what leads to burnout. With the highs and lows, my big thing is making sure, the highs are great when you have growth, community, and the momentum, when you just feel like you're hitting all the boxes or like your social media post is doing great. The lows are when it's just like burnout, cash flow sucks, or you're not seeing that come in and the timing of everything because behind the scenes for clothing, how this works is we are purchasing what a half a year in advance. And so we could have $20,000 coming out one week, but your cash flow is so important to that. So it's like if you're not pushing stuff, I mean, you really have to be meticulous in what you're bringing in, maybe doing last minute cuts or being like, this isn't going to work. We're going to have to get rid of this stash or anything to kind of manage cash flow on that. And then decision fatigue, I think, is big because sometimes I'm just
Mhm.
like, I'm fucking tapped. And I don't know about for y'all, but for me personally, I work in like spurts. So like weeks at a time, I will be on fire and then I just like fucking crash. And I'm like, I got nothing left in me. Like
I'm the
put me in the
same.
store. But when it comes to like productivity or things like I could work all night for 4 weeks and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'll show up, but I ain't got anything left.
I'm the same way. And I think doing this side job of wholesale for the company I represent,
Yeah.
I've kind of had to learn to balance that. You know,
Yeah.
that
That's
happens
rough.
with Gatorbug, but not always with this.
Well, I feel like all those things, like, I think the biggest message from that is you can love your business and still struggle with it. Like both can be true
Mhm.
at the same time. You're going to experience highs and lows together. And sometimes you're just going to have a lot of lows and you've got to keep motivated on that and just say, I think going back to what was your why, who, and what, because there's going to be so many times where you're just down. And sometimes I'll let myself just be down for a couple weeks. And then what else would I do? This is the only thing I want to do. So you need to get your shit together, Sydney. Like pull it together and get on it. So I think both of those can be true at the same time, and you just got to really love your business and run it.
Absolutely.
Going into the next question, marketing. I feel like that
Mm,
I love marketing, but I also hate it. Marketing that worked and didn't. I have
mm.
so many thoughts on this, but if you guys want to start at, if there's anything or you just want me to jump into it.
I mean, you see it more than I think we definitely do, but,
You usually see me flipping out over
we
those
do.
things.
We do, but
So
we
I would
just gotta.
say for sure.
Yeah. Mm,
I probably do a majority of the marketing. And one thing that I've learned is that you don't ever fucking know. I don't care what anybody is going to say.
no.
I have watched other boutiques do shit that has popped off and those things, and you see other people trying to recreate or do other things and it doesn't work. I think you just need to stay consistent. Stay consistent over being trendy with things. Like trying those things, but not just like if you had $10,000 to spend for the year, I wouldn't go in and be like, okay, well, I'm going to try 1,000 new things. Like if I was starting a business off, I would say, okay, I need to see where my marketing money is actually going to come back. And so I think with the marketing is spreading out your money and saying, okay, like we've done a lot of print. Print doesn't work out for us.
No, it
I
does.
think in some regard it did, but marketing is expensive across the board.
Absolutely.
You start looking at getting what we were in Midtown magazine, and those things are not
When
cheap. You're talking a couple of $1,000s for those.
yeah. Yeah.
And not saying it didn't get our name out, but is
Right.
it to the right group? Like and I'm saying this not to be an ageist by any means, but we would have these little old ladies come in with just the torn out magazine, Midtown magazine thing. And they'd be like, do you have this dress? The problem is like we had that dress 3 months ago because that photo was shot 3 months ago,
Yeah.
And so many people with fashion, like I know for me, when I see an ad, I want whatever caught my eye in that ad. It's not a generalization of it. Like I want that. And so I think you really just have to figure out if I were starting out, I would say, okay, I'm going to try a couple different markets for marketing and see what works. Keep it low. I don't think you need a whole page ad. I think, getting into something, just seeing if it works. I think just staying consistent about that of like, okay, we're going to go in print. We're going to try Facebook and Instagram ads. We're going to try the influencer realm. And I think it's just really figuring out what your market is and what your market is going to be on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think listen to your intuition too, because as you meet with people that are in print marketing or digital marketing, they might try to sucker you or swindle you.
For
And
sure.
listen to what you need for your business. And I say this because my concentration's in marketing and know what you need at that moment. Don't let someone sucker you into something because, like Sydney said, going back to it could be something that you're locked into for a long time and you're spending gobs of money on.
Yeah, and and that's another point with that is like print marketing usually has a contract of like at least a couple months. Sometimes it's a year. So I think knowing what you're getting into, I think one big thing that we've learned is just the human connection and like storytelling of things. If I could put any advice out there for marketing, it would be building your connections and having those people talk about your business. It's free marketing, and that's the strongest. Like, how many times are you going to flip through an ad and be like, oh, I got to go there? Like you see one picture for half a second in a print ad, or like even let's say, Facebook and Instagram advertisements, like the meta ad different because it's literally synced into what you're searching and is going to pull that 1,000 different times. So it's just repetition on that. But I think with the human connection, like emotion side of things, that has the strongest connection because if I'm looking at an ad on my phone that pops up 7 times, like, yeah, it's just going to be repetition. But if one of my friends is like, listen, I had the best experience over at this place, or I had a great dinner here, then I am going to go over there. That's going to be something that's on my top list because it's coming from someone I know who knows me and knows what my tastes are. And so I just think you're going to have a better run with that. One thing that I feel like I've really missed out on and that I wish that I probably would have done differently in that is really do a lot of email and SMS
Yes.
marketing, putting a lot into that and heavier on that focus with it. A lot of times you try to reach for new customers instead of really cultivating the ones that you have because you're like, oh, I've already got them. But if you really start looking at what buying patterns are and how many times they've shopped with you, it's a lot easier to take your current customer base and push sales through them because they already have shopped with you or have already had those experiences with you than trying to obtain new customers. Not saying you don't want to do that, obviously, because you want to grow out, but I think just working the customer base that you have is really important. So I would definitely think email and SMS is super important, where I think a lot of people just focus more on the social media aspect.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. It's a huge one.
Yeah, like what you said, Sydney, I feel like a lot of businesses, when you already have your clientele and you're like, okay, I already have them, but those are the people and the relationships that you want to cultivate because you obviously want to keep them. And if they have a good experience in your store or business, whatever it is that you have, that's where the word of mouth marketing is going to go. They're going to go tell all their friends.
It's just so much easier. And you just build a different relationship with those people. When it's like they trusting you, they're coming to you for that. And obviously, from like a business aspect, that's amazing. But I love it from like a personal connection aspect. I think one thing that I've seen across the board for a lot of people too is so many times a new platform form will come out and people are like, we got to rush here, what was it? Like TikTok and the TikTok shops. Not saying that can't get you stuff like those get you views. We were one of the first boutiques to really jump on the social media platform with that. And we went viral and not saying, but the problem is that takes a lot of damn time to do those videos and not saying you don't get brand recognition. I think that's amazing, but not many sales. I mean, sales come from that, but not in the way that most people are like, oh, if I go viral, we're going to go millions. Yeah, that can happen for businesses, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the thing. Unless you have a team of 20, you can't be on every damn platform multiple times a day. TikTok over here, social media, email, SMS, blah, blah, blah. Choose what works for you. If you're getting 10 likes over on TikTok, then why would you waste hours doing TikTok when you're getting thousands or hundreds over on the other platforms? It doesn't make sense to me. It's like, don't waste the time on them.
Absolutely.
What's hard is when you have, all these followers and you have engagement and stuff, the hard part is actually translating that into actual sales.
It is.
So it's like, how do you take that and flip it into them actually buying from you? You know what I mean? That's always, I feel like, been a struggle.
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize with that is how much work it takes once you go viral and you have all those and you're getting people adding on. You still have to create that content, but then it's that instant content of like the stories of like posting all of our new arrivals, here how to style this, those stories where people can shop because yes, you've created that viral reel. Okay. You've spent hours and you posting that or you spent 10 minutes. It's always the fucking 10-minute ones. Can I just tell you that? It's always the fucking 10-minute reels that have taken you 10 minutes rather than the 4-hour concept that you've, changed outfits, done all this, taken 3 hours to edit is like the quick ones that you do that go viral. But after you do that, it's then like, okay, well, then what do we do? And so I think you've got to be able to push other content out.
Exactly.
But yeah, I just think it's about once you have them, getting them to actually purchase. Well, going back to the different styles of marketing that we have done, I think we have legitimately done every type of fucking marketing out there. Print for multiple magazines. And when I'm talking, that's not like a $300 thing. You're talking about tens of thousands of dollars going out for them. But we've done text or email, billboards.
We did a bill. That's right. We had
You
a
did
billboard.
a billboard?
And you want to talk about money? Get a billboard.
Yeah, that's a
My
lot.
gosh. You could send your kid to college.
We've hired a marketing company to do Facebook ads for us. Now we just do them in house. Facebook ads. What else? Oh, the Go Play Save.
Yes, those damn coupons.
You know
Hell,
what? I have actually had several people write me on those or come in and use them, but those have also been a lot of headaches on that. But honestly, that was pretty cheap, on the flip side.
Scheme of things, yeah. I think the only thing we haven't done is a commercial, but I take that back because we actually were in talks to do one too. So, I mean,
well, we did them with the TV station. We did. No, actually, now thinking about it, we've done TV.
You guys did. You've done
ads.
TV.
We've done
We've done it
TV,
all.
we've done radio with G105, and this was an important thing. If we could go back, I would have tracked that better in the way of doing a discount attached to it.
Yes, 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 yes. To
Because you
see.
spend tens of thousands of dollars and you have no way to know unless you're asking every customer. And so many people hear them. I mean, our friends were like, oh my God, I just heard y'all on the radio, different things, or I saw you on TV.
Mhm.
But so many different things. I would definitely say having a discount code for that so people could see it. And then that way you could track it on. I always go back to the best marketing, and I just think that is word of mouth. If it doesn't connect, convert, or build trust, it's just not worth the effort on it.
Absolutely. Word of mouth is everything, and growing your network too. I mean, I think, Sydney, would you agree? We've got a great friend in the industry that is a huge television, radio personality, and she's done a lot of stuff for us just because we've built that relationship with her.
For sure. I mean, Erica,
She's the best.
she was coming around our shop when we first opened, before we even opened Raleigh. She was like watching out, but she has been such a great, so many times she's been like, hey, free advertisement here, or just bringing up our name. And, we've really tried to be able to thank her. But when you are able to partner with people who really believe in you and trust and just like love your business, it helps so much too, because it's not just a paid advertisement, the influencer thing. We've done that. And the
Mhm.
problem with the influencers, yes, they can build your business and really, put it out there. But the problem is if that market is not your market, it's not going to work. And if those people wouldn't naturally shop your stuff, it's not going to work. Like
Uh-huh.
we've done other influencers where we didn't pay them, but we had like a credit back, but it was like, yeah, they had followers, but our stuff was not their shit. Like if out of, 100% of the clothing, they might have appealed to 10%, that's not, we're going to have a harder sell on all of that, And so I think that's a big thing too.
I'm not trying to sound whatever, but I feel like when you're doing marketing and want to find a person, if you're going to do that, that aligns with your product.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
not going to go give an apron to a fashion bitch who's on the run. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, and also it's like, yeah, her fashion might line up, but if you've got like a fitness influencer, like, yeah, she could look cute, look your brand, but if that's not her thing, then that's not going to work. So just be very choosy with that. Okay. Growing an online business. Whew, that was the next question. Growing an online business.
That's an
Again,
episode in itself. Good God.
yeah. If we're keeping it short and sweet, my thing is making sure that your branding is clear, and that you have an easy website. Great pictures, explain the hell out of things. I mean, for us, we're selling clothing and it's so hard because each clothing brand is different. Bianca hates me because I'm like, we've got to measure each item. And by we, I mean you and the team.
we go through all this, we measure everything, and people will still message and ask, what are the measurements of this? What is a large going to fit like? I'm like, if you read the description, it'll tell you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And with most boutiques, it's like small is 0 to 2. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Our website, we've really gone above and beyond to make sure that like all the measurements for each item is on there, because
Mhm.
they can just vary so much, even for the brand. We were just talking about that. Like, what was it? What brand? Literally, it was the same damn dress. It was produced 6 months within each other, and they were off by a couple inches.
Simone comes to mind. I've dealt with that before.
Yes, Lucy Paris. I love me some Lucy Paris, but that
Yeah.
they have some discrepancies a lot. You have to literally measure every single,
You
which
do.
we
Yeah.
do anyway, but it can be off. The same item can be off.
Yeah, I think big piece of advice, and also like making sure that your website is downloading at a faster speed, that you've got new content coming in. I mean, obviously we have the brick and mortar, so it's a lot easier for us to focus on that than it is to do the online. But when you're talking about just building an online thing, I mean, your whole business is coming in from people want to see shit that's fresh. People
Mhm.
want to be able to download your website very quickly. I don't like if it takes 30 seconds, I'm clicking off and I'm going. I want to see pictures. I think, if you have the ability to shoot, I guess it just depends on what kind of product. I mean, depending on what kind of product you're bringing in. But I feel like clothing, getting it on different bodies is important, because so many times we go in, we're clicking on something from Target and it's a girl who is 5'10" and 30 pounds. No tits, no ass, no nothing. And not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but like a
Yeah.
majority of people have different bodies. So if you can get it on different bodies to show that, I think that would help build.
Yeah, having your pictures align with your product. Like if you're a lifestyle brand, having
Yes.
those kind of imagery on the website, not just like a flat lay of something or
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
showing it in action, I guess.
Absolutely.
I think we kind of touched about this before, but serving, your current customers before chasing new ones is a big thing, is like really cultivate the relationships that you already have, because those are a lot easier and a lot cheaper to obtain sales from than having to dig with new customers. I mean, you start digging into that. I don't know, for the people who asked this question, if you really dug into how much like Facebook ads cost, it's not cheap. Advertisement just in general is very expensive. And then you are just like shooting out there and hoping a bullet lands somewhere and that you can make something off of it. But it doesn't always work like that. So when you already have your customer base and you already know what they like, if someone really likes something, I think reaching out here and there and be like, hey, we just got this in, or really working your email is great. Is like when you go and dig into emails, like if you're looking at different things, like we have people who are buying Emily McCarthy, and that's a segment in its own. And if those people are primarily buying higher price point lines, then we're separating them out from other people. So they're not seeing 9,000 emails a month on it. They're getting what they're purchasing. So I think segmenting emails is very important to marketing. And not like if they're primarily buying those, or if they're primarily buying lower price point lines, then they're not going to go for a 250. Not saying they will never, but I'm saying like I'm not going to waste an email that's sent out to them, and like cuz I hate getting shit that I'm not going to buy. So I am going to segment my customer base into figuring out what they like, what they buy. And there's so many different programs that can really segment out and say, okay, this customer has typically bought within this price point, or you can do anything you want to on those things. But it just takes time. And so that's the other side of things, is like figuring out the time thing. And then I think with online part, consistency over perfection. And I've really got to dig into this next year. That's one of my goals, is sometimes I'm either all in on the website or all out on it, because it gets overwhelming. Because I'm like, oh, it's got to be perfect. It's got to do this. So it's either like amazing and everything looks great, or today I went back on there and I don't even know how this, because I've gone on the website, but I had day 11 of Christmas on there today. And I didn't even realize. And I was like, I've gone on that website at least like 9 times to edit things. So I just think being on there, putting the time in, and growing deeper relationships that matter.
You're right. Consistency. And I don't know where this falls in, but I wanted to point this out because you've done such a great job, Sydney. I think bringing this, it's to Gatorbug and really honing in is a rewards program.
For sure. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
I
You're
mean, I'm a chronic shopaholic over here. I shop our stuff, but we had a lot of friends in the boutique world, and I shop a shit ton, you guys. And I am not 10 times more likely to shop with someone where I know I can redeem a $30 thing. I'm getting money back, or I'm getting, who doesn't want
something. Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
Well, especially nowadays where your
Yeah.
dollar is not going as far as it
No.
would before. So it's like anything that a business can do to try and give back, I feel like goes a long way.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you could just even be like, hey, like even if sales are down, like January, February timeframe is rough for boutiques, you could literally just issue out like a $50 gift card. And it's like, it's stuff
Literally.
that you got to get rid of anyway. Depending on the store, you got tens of thousands of dollars just sitting in the store. So let's say you reward your top, 5% of your customers and give them $50 back to the store. Yes, you might lose something off the top, but those customers are then going to come back because they like that, and then we also have different customers. We have people who just shop the sales rack or different things like that. And so I think being able to like really segment that out, doing the rewards program, that's great. The rewards program is
It's
definitely a big thing.
absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Well, then moving on to the next, this was a really good one that kind of ties back into the marketing thing, was how to know if spending more on marketing will lead to a higher ROI. So for people,
Mm.
return on investment.
Yeah.
So
All right.
basically what you're putting out there, are you getting back, or is it gonna lead for more?
That's a
Everyone
good one.
Something is
I
gonna
know.
work or not,
Yeah,
Oh God. I mean, this
you
is
know?
such a loaded question
it
because,
is.
again, spending so much time in the marketing world on that shit, you really don't know. I don't care what anyone says. We're in contact with hundreds of different boutiques. We're part of those groups where it's like a mastermind group and we all talk and everyone talks about what they're putting out there, how much they're spending. We all have different, like we have access to see what their ads are. And it's crazy how two people could have the same ad and they perform very differently. It always surprises me on that. But I think with that, tracking what converts, like we said earlier, with like that print ads, with the radio ads, with all those things, get yourself a discount code or some way that you can track it. Because the problem is everyone's like, oh, social media or these things, like we can track these ads, or you talk about print, and it's like, they start talking about their numbers from a magazine standpoint. And they're just saying, like, based off of everybody that we've seen in here, this is how much growth they've had. But the problem is, no one can actually narrow down and say, okay, that growth came directly from the print advertisement of, blah, blah, blah magazine. And that's how they swindle your ass is they start going in and say, oh, well, these are top performers. It's like, yeah, the guy's in fucking orthodontics. Like his fucking conversion rate, he's spending $3,000 an ad while he's collecting like $20,000 for braces. Definitely not the
Yeah.
same thing as a fucking $20 top.
No, it's not.
But you know how I feel about the print advertisement. It's always crazy to me
Absolutely.
because they have like the 40 under 40, the top performers, the thing, and you literally just pay to be in those. Um,
Literally.
but I think tracking what converts is important. Seeing, putting things out there where you can actually track, not where they're telling you what their numbers are. Because so many times, like with the current shopping center that we're at, they hire a marketing team and then they say, well, these are the amount of people who are coming into based off of like your creepy cell phone data. The amount of shit that you can find on a phone is weird.
Insane.
But the problem is you're not getting that information directly.
Right.
And that could be someone literally who just drove into the thing. Or over at Fenton, there's a lot of business people. So people who are coming in from out of town to go and work at those businesses because there's offices up there will skew the fucking information because their cell phones are pinging there. And they're like, yeah, we're top, 75% for people who are out of town. Well, no shit, because there's a company that employs thousands of people where 90% of the people travel. I mean, and that's where I think marketing is really skewed because you got to get granular into it and really dive in and be like, okay, well, that's great for numbers, but not, if 1,000 people traveling from out of state are going to the business across the street and staying there for the day and then leaving, not all of them are coming into our businesses. They are literally going, it's 30 feet across the street from us. They're in that business office. That drives me insane. That's my pressure point. I will fuck someone up over those.
Really will.
And when they come in there, I'm like, no, this is it. And I'm like, no, bitch, this is it. I don't know, but that's just one of my things. What do you guys have any input on this?
Go for it, Bianca.
With everything else that we said, I think being consistent with whatever it is that you're trying to do with the marketing and, trying different things, but being
Yeah.
consistent with it,
Yeah.
whether that be, honing in on different customer categories, like you were saying with the emails.
Some things are locked in. Like using your email, that is what you're spending. You're gonna see a couple $100s in that. With other spending of marketing, you're gonna go a lot higher. You're gonna be in the multiple thousands. I think testing small before scaling is important.
Absolutely.
Like if you're doing Facebook ads and stuff like that, like test out the market, be quick to do changes on that. Generally, I feel like if the ad's not working within 7 days, it's not going to work. I mean, it's just not the ad for the time. And then I think with advertising too, or marketing things that have a high margin, a lot of people like to do like the 2 times, and that's like nothing in that. Do your jewelry.
You've spent you're not making anything on that. You've actually lost money. Absolutely.
But I don't think I know people want a clear answer on that one. You will never get a clear answer on that because the problem is it's so dependent upon your business. I mean, how many times did we sit down with Mark and talk about the different advertisement realms? And the problem is like everybody wants a guarantee and you will never get a guarantee because the company is not going to say, yes, if you're going to spend 10,000, if you spend 10,000, you're definitely going to get this. Or we're going to give you your money back. That just doesn't happen, because
No,
they're
that's
putting in the time and effort, and it's not 100% on whatever you choose to do with that.
no, it's not. If you're a numbers person, you're never gonna get that. So take what you know and just throw it out the window.
Yeah.
No, and as you go. I mean,
Yeah.
honest to God.
I think it's, tracking what converts, doing small test, samples of it and then scale it up. A lot of so one big thing for the boutique world is like with those groups that we're in, we kind of all say, hey, this is what's working for us. This is kind of the growth or the ROI that we had on there. And then what I see a lot of those businesses do is they will test that for a week. And let's say they're putting like $20 a day into the advertisement. And then if it does really well, then they're gonna up that budget more and more on it. But with clothing, again, unless you're a national brand, like the smaller brands usually are bringing in more stuff more frequently, and so you're turning that over. So if you're pulling in someone off of that ad, off of a dress that they liked, you might not have that. So then that also goes into the buying aspect of like, how deep are you going to buy into each, thing? There's so much with that. But I just think one big takeaway is like throwing more money into marketing that it doesn't fix broken systems. It just amplifies them. You've just got to figure out what's working. You can do low budget and just see what works for you. All right. Ooh, this is a big one. This is one of my faves. Okay. Someone had asked, like, how do you manage schedule and off the clock time? Like stepping away from your business and not feeling guilty about it.
This is a good one. I don't know who wrote that's like a very good question. Sydney, I'm gonna let you take that because you literally come to mind when I think about someone that set us up for this well. And then I look at some of our friends who are in the industry who haven't done this right and how it bit them in the asshole.
Okay, this is what I say, and this is my saying. If it ain't fire, flood, or blood, don't fucking text me.
Especially on the weekend.
And that's not like those literal, I mean, those are the major ones.
Right.
And again, I guess if you're a surgeon or life saving thing, that wouldn't count for you, but we're not in that. We sell clothing. So there's nothing that major that can't be handled. Is like when you're owning a business, you have to have those boundaries. I am so clear on those boundaries for things, and not saying that's not to say that we're not there for the team.
Yeah, absolutely not.
But don't ask me your stupid question. When we're at home, we're doing mom stuff, we're doing husband duties, all the things, taking care of our own shit, having fun, trying to, take a fucking breath. Okay. When you're in a
Yeah.
business 24/7, it's just like you never have a fucking break. It doesn't even matter if you have the day off. You don't. I just think this is where building those systems in the beginning come in, building good systems, building a employee handbook that people can refer to for basic things. I mean, and also just being, I think, clear with your team about what expectations are, because so many times, like, we will get, whoa, someone's returning this. Well, you know what our return policy is. Like, unless there's something like it's just crumbling and something like that. But again, like, if there is an issue with the product, that's a different thing. Then use your best judgment on that. But if someone's coming in, it smells like they've worn it, they don't have any tags. I know a lot of businesses feel differently because they still want to capture those people. But I feel like we as business owners, we bend over backwards to make sure that our customers are taken care of. But that doesn't mean that we're going to bend policies to do that. It wouldn't be fair if you came in, if our, policy is you got 10 days to return, and then on the fifth day, I'm like, I don't really want you to do, or you're not going to return that. It's not fair for us to cut it short. And it's not fair for you to like drag out more days to do that. I've always thought like good customers are the ones that respect our boundaries and our policies, and not saying, it's hard because like where the fuck do you draw the line on it? If you allow one, I always feel like if you allow one, you got to allow everybody.
Absolutely.
But I just think you've got to set clear expectations on your policies with the team. Also, like you got to be able to delegate.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bianca, I feel like you have a lot to say probably on this because the girls, she does
Yeah.
a lot with our inventory, all that.
With the business mentality, I feel like we all come from our parents come from a generation where all of our parents are entrepreneurs. It's always been like you work blood, sweat, and tear. You're working sun up to sundown, and there's never a boundary of putting yourself and like your mental health first. And I feel like a lot of us grew up that way. And I feel like it's so important, like Sydney was saying before, to implement those boundaries because we've all experienced burnout when you're fucking literally on the way to work having a mental breakdown every damn time
Yeah,
you're going to a job that you fucking hate, or, you run yourself ragged, and it's not healthy, and your business is not going to thrive if you are not happy and healthy and taking care of yourself first.
for sure. Oh, it's weird because we have so many people who own businesses as like, for friends. And it's almost like they get a high off of that. Like, when we're on vacation and they're answering shit, I'm like,
No.
"You're not a fucking heart surgeon." I mean, like, it's not that serious, and if your business cannot thrive or can't survive without you be gone for a week, you didn't do your job, I mean,
Right.
you're not training your team right. I mean, there's multiple facets, but Catherine, go for it.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to piggyback. I mean, you literally said that so beautifully. I think, if you get yourself into that mindset, what the hell are you going to do when you get married and you got to take a hiatus for a honeymoon? You going to have people calling you when you're in St.
Or
Bart's?
you have fucking
Fuck.
kids or any of the
Don't
that
fucking
fucking
call
shit.
me.
Exactly. You're so right. But we watched our friends do this all the time. And it's like on
Mhm.
vacation. And I'm gonna be honest, we're having the most fun because we know how to delegate.
I feel like it's like you act like you are irreplaceable. I don't want to fucking build a business that I have to feel so important that like if I walk away, they can't function without me. But I think it's that like
Mhm.
pride thing of like, look at how much I'm doing, look at how much I'm sacrificing. If we build a business that we can't fucking walk away from, that would feel like a defeat. Like I would
Yeah.
be like, we are failing and we're not doing the
Yeah.
job right. Not saying that we don't want to be a part of it, but you should be able to step away for a week or two and the whole thing not fucking crumble down to the ground. And if you do,
1000%.
then you haven't built a business or team that is functioning on its own, which I
Yeah.
think as a leader is the worst thing that you could do to yourself, to everybody else. I think so much we keep these secrets from people because we're like, well, what if they go off and do it? Well, a lot of people can go off and try to start a business. It doesn't make them fucking entrepreneurs. I mean, not everyone's cut out for that lifestyle.
No.
And some people, if you're doing your job right, don't you want your people to build out and the ones who are meant to be entrepreneurs grow into that and start their own shit? It's this like, when we're on vacation with friends, it's like everyone's on their cell phone and they're like, "Oh my God, putting out fires." And I'm like, they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, we're trusting our team to do what their jobs are. And maybe they'll hit it, maybe they won't. But I'm not going to live everything day where we're like sitting there having a meltdown and being like yelling at people while we're on vacation for a week. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, let's set a boundary for that. And like, I know that a lot of people probably think I'm hardlined in our business, and I am because I'm like, if you had a business and you're giving your all 24/7 on it and you want to step away or, whatever it is, it's like, don't bother me with a question of like, how do you want me to put up the toilet paper? Like, what the fuck do you mean? Do you not have a house of your own? Do you not know how to manage any of that
Ah,
shit? That's my first thing of like, and I'm sure our team will probably be listening to this
Yeah,
and
I hope
right, I can't do that shit. It's like common sense stuff. Like,
people
how
think we
have you
make this
made
stuff
it?
up, and
How
we don't.
far? How have we
One
made it
day,
this far? How did you get into college? That's my fucking question.
and I'm going to be honest, Sydney, one day I hope we can come on here for an episode and just give the good shit we get because like it makes us laugh.
Some of the
we
shit
get.
that people, and I'm not even talking about the group that we have
No,
now, like I'm just talking in general over the last
past
6 years of
employees,
the questions
yes.
that I have been asked and that
Mhm.
everyone has been asked. I mean, all three of us on that stuff. It's like, how do you walk and breathe each day? That's what I would like to know, and I'm
Yeah.
legitimately not even trying to be an asshole. I just wonder, how did you get into a top tier college?
Literally, though.
How do
You
you
know, and
walk
so,
and chew gum at the same time?
you
Because I
know,
have many questions.
I
Can we
always,
do that? Pat your head and rub your stomach.
the printer thing will forever be. And sometimes
Listen, bitch,
people
the
have
printers,
valid
the
no,
printers,
no. Sometimes, how am I the only person who knows how to work a fucking printer in this
because
bitch?
it's luck. Because those
No,
fucking
it's
printers
not.
be fucking up.
It's the same shit that I give everyone every single fucking time. I do the same fucking thing every
Every time the
I will
printer
tell you,
breaks.
this happened within the last 6 months. So one girl, I had new printers delivered to the store because one, it was on its last leg. It was not working.
Yeah.
We troubleshoot. It was done. Okay. That printer got delivered on a Friday, which is my worst nightmare when shit gets delivered when I'm not there. Because then I'm like, I can't even get it set up. Because I know how this, again, if you got into college, then you should be able to set up a printer. That's my hard take on it. You guys can say I'm a bitch. You can do whatever you want to on it. If you got into college and you applied for FAFSAs or whatever they're calling them now, okay, or you applied for scholarships or any of the things, you should be able to set up a printer in 2026, okay? So the printer gets delivered. The girl who's setting it up, she's like getting everything ready and she's like, the printer's not working. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I'm walking through things. I'm like, did you download the blah, 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 do this, blah, blah, blah. She's like, yep, I did all that. Okay. So that's on a Friday. Sunday. And I'm like, just leave it. I'll be in there on Monday. I'll take care of it, because after you've gone through, I am like, is that worth, going through setting up the printer worth my time? It's probably not worth my time. I'll be there on Monday. I'm not going to go through a 3-hour rant on this. Girl on Sunday writes me, new girl. He's like, hey, just want to touch base. I saw your text messages between you and, so and so or whatever. And she's like, I just checked the printer. It didn't have any paper in it. That's why it wasn't working. It didn't have any paper. I want everyone, we're silent because I want that to fucking sink in for a moment. The printer wasn't working because it didn't have any fucking paper in it. At some point, you don't go down the list and think, should I check these things?
Yeah.
That was why it wasn't working. This person got into college, all these things, like had great, jobs on their resume. Didn't know there had to be paper in the printer.
Was on the dean's list.
Yeah.
Just doesn't make sense.
No.
Those are the things, like, I'm not book smart by any means. So
Me either.
anybody who's in college could probably whoop my ass if it counts to, I'm not reading, I'm not taking 4 hours. And this is why I didn't go to college for longer than 2 years. I'm not reading fucking 4 hours and then writing a paper. I do not have the mental, like, I cannot, that is like, how can I get out of this quick enough? Like, let me figure out what the easiest way is. For me, I'm very street smart. You could give me, I could run you a business. I could do all those things. Like, I love business law. You could put me in all those things. When it came to reading one of the classes, what was it? Ethics. And we got a fucking book this big and we had to read like 4 chapters each night. And the print was the tiniest fucking print. I couldn't even see it at 21. Okay. At 20, I was like getting glasses. I'm not doing that shit. So I'm probably never going to pass. I know we all have our things, but common sense, like, the fuck? What do you mean? Don't ask me stupid questions. Don't ask me questions that are already in our employee handbook.
That too.
I think
I just start saying that now when they ask
For
me,
sure.
like, read the handbook. Like, I'm not playing around anymore.
And
I
it's
never
not, I'm not
was,
even trying to be mean, but I'm saying if we've got 12 people on a team and everybody is asking, my whole day would be, all of our days would be like just filled up with those questions. Catherine's a nice one where she'll entertain it. And I'm just like, what does the employee handbook say? What do you think is, and I'm not saying that to be condescending or rude, but I'm saying, if we have employees and I'm telling you everything, you are not going to have the ability to think about those things and do. I'm sorry. If someone is giving you, I think that's the problem with kids, is because they've been given this handbook of every little step you need to take to live, survive. And so they're like, what do I do next? And it's like, sometimes survival skills will get you where you need to be.
Yeah.
So I always say, and I was actually reading, or I was listening to this podcast that was talking to a top Olympic swimmer trainer, and they were going through like why his team was so successful on things. And he was just saying, like, well, he would always ask his team, well, what do you think the answer is, to see how they thought about things and if they could come to that, and that they would have the independence to come up with the solutions on their own. And I thought that's fucking brilliant, because if we tell someone this is A, B, and C, then what's going to happen? They're going to look back at you at every point that something somewhat challenging comes along and say, what do I need to do? And I'm like, when you put it in there, well, what would you do? And let's say they say the wrong answer. Then it's time to coach them and say, okay, well, no, this is I get how you came to that, but this is how I would handle it. And then you train your team to have the same mentality and thinking that you do. And then, 3 months in, and for retail, it's hard because you're constantly flipping people.
Yeah.
But with other businesses, if you're really maintaining that and, whatnot, I feel like that's a great system.
I agree.
I know that sounds rough, and people probably don't come to me for the fluffy feels.
Well, we know they sure shit are not coming to me.
You don't go like, duh.
Are you okay?
Are you damn okay?
Are you damn okay?
No, you both have rubbed off on me. I did get a couple of texts throughout the weekend, and I'm very proud to say that I didn't respond.
Good.
Good, I'm glad. And I know when people are listening to this, they're probably gonna think it's really,
mean.
like, cruel or, like, mean, but
No,
that's not how we
it's
mean it.
not.
It's just, like,
No.
you've gotta build the boundaries in for things and just say, like, "I trust you, and if you do
Mhm.
something wrong, it's a learning moment, and we're gonna coach over it." You're not burning down the store, you know? We always
Right.
tell our team, like, 1, we expect more respectful and go above and
Mhm.
beyond, but we have our policies in place, and those ones are solid. We're not
Mhm.
unless it's something like raveling apart or wasn't good quality or something happened, like, if someone's wearing something once
Yeah.
and is, like, ripping down the sides and it's just like, no, then that's a different thing. It's building those boundaries, doing the employee handbooks and the systems and the training, and then really just putting them like, "What do you think is the right answer?" And then
Yeah.
they have the ability to answer rather than
Yeah.
waiting on you. And then if that's not the right answer, then you just say, "Hey, this is it." And not saying that you can't text us on the weekends or things like that, but it's like we get so many bullshit texts on things, like just in general over the last 6 years. It's like, "Hey, we got a delivery of water. Where do you want me to put it?" "What do you mean?" Like, "Put it in the back." You know, like things like that. That's like, you don't need to ask me about every little thing. And I think sometimes people feel like that builds connection, but it's like there's other ways to build connection in a different way. I think setting clear expectations,
Mhm.
using your systems that you have in place and setting those in. A lot of times I think people screw themselves over because they start off as a small business and are like, okay, well, I don't know how fast I'm going to grow, so I'm not going to do these things. But I think having a clear and concise thing that you can work off of, because how many times am I like, how are we doing that system? Because I might one day be like, okay, we're going to change it to this. And if you don't have it written down, then you're not going to remember it because you had like 40 iterations of
Yeah.
how you're going to mark down sale items, you know? And then boundaries in long term and just say, like, hey, I think when we all go on vacation, we kind of just tell everybody, like, hey, we're going on vacation. Like, if Catherine's or whoever, Bianca, I'm like, don't contact Bianca, contact me, you know, or Catherine, or
Yep,
these are the
same.
lines of things. But on the flip side, Bianca and everyone preps everybody to make sure that they have everything they need.
Yes.
It's not fair to leave your team uncovered
No.
and being like, because with it, we trust Bianca 100%. So we don't get
Mhm.
into her shit. Like the last time we did inventory, when Bianca left for a week, I was like, I haven't seen the fucking inventory side
Yeah.
in like years, you know?
And I
And
don't
so
want
I was
to.
like, we all were like, how does this work,
How
you
do we
know?
do this?
Mhm.
But it's because we trust her in her job. Not saying that we're not like, okay, we can't jump in there, but it's like,
Yeah.
we're not going to get in her fucking cookie jar and be like micromanaging everything. And, but on the flip side, when Bianca leaves, she has a fucking list of how everyone should do everything, what they need to do. And so we know that when she leaves, she's going to have the team prepped. We're not going to have to sit there but we tell them, don't contact her. You
Yep.
contact us. If it's a do or die, absolutely I need to have that answer.
Yeah.
Me and Catherine will know if we need to contact Bianca on that thing.
Yeah.
But it's not if it's not do or fucking die, we don't contact each other on that shit. Like the other day,
Yep.
I hated even to have to contact you about the inventory stuff, but I
Oh,
knew that those financials had to be wrapped up. And so it's things
Yeah.
like that we're not gonna contact her each other on a weekend with things that
Mhm.
don't matter, you know? So I think that's you just have to set the boundaries and just tell your team when they step over
Mhm.
those boundaries. Love this. This would have been something that could have been like, our manager will be back on Monday. Let me get your contact information. You hold on to whatever you got or whatnot, and they will be in touch
Mhm.
on that day. That's when, people come back in. You don't need to be available 24/7. You're not a heart
Yeah.
surgeon, you know? Okay. So, one last question that came in today. We'll wrap this up really quickly. Biggest lesson that each of you, we've all learned. Who wants to kick it off?
Okay, I have one.
okay. Hit
Okay.
us.
So one thing I will say is if you are going to start a business, you need to be ready to start the business. And if you are going to start a business with someone, you have got to be 100% on the same page of how you want everything to
Go.
go.
I think and I also think having, like, voting things in place for that
Mm.
or, like, how you're going to decide if you feel differently.
Yeah.
And then also, like, a contingency plan for buying each other out if that doesn't work.
Absolutely.
That's smart and good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's hard.
It
So
is.
many people are like, "Oh, that's my best friend." I mean, we can speak to it because 'cause we're family and we don't see eye to
Mhm.
eye on those things, and there's
Yeah.
been several times, like, that's not fun, and don't start a business with your friend. No. I mean, unless you guys are on the same page and you guys know that you work on the same level with each other, but just have those things built in. Cause so many times no one starts a business off being like, this is gonna, like, we're gonna disagree. But if
No,
you do, then you need to figure out a way on how you're gonna out of that business in a respectful
absolutely.
way to everybody that's profitable, you know?
Yeah,
Absolutely. If you're not going to buy each other out, how are you going to work to the common goal?
For
How
sure.
are you guys going to get on that same page? God knows Sydney and I have had to go through that, and it's made us stronger than ever, but it was a bitch, to do it, but
And honestly, when we're thinking about it, we really had no other choice because we're family, and it's like our
yeah,
family, I mean, there's so
it's
many people
small.
who have similar things who are just friends, and it's like we have no ties to each other. I mean, you
Right.
can be
We
like,
do.
okay, yeah, we're friends, but that can poison and you will end friendships over that. Like we're family, so we just had to work through that shit.
yeah.
Absolutely. No, I think that's like my biggest thing I would say is that for sure.
I think another thing too, though, is really separating how you personally feel about people versus the business. And I mean, I've definitely struggled with this because of who I am as a person, and that is definitely something that I have had to learn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
And that can be hard sometimes to
I like
navigate
to say
that.
I'm
it's
just trying to
separation
think of
between
all this
church and
stuff.
state.
Yeah,
It really is. I mean, that in itself is fucking hard. And no one
yeah.
tells you about that.
It
No
is
No.
one tells
because
you to
those are two totally
compartmentalize.
different realms.
No.
Mhm.
I'm really trying to think about this one because I'm like, this is so hard to just pick one biggest lesson learned.
10 come to mind, you know?
I
God.
think a lesson too could be, being okay with setting those kind of boundaries that we were talking about before, being okay with not being available 24/7 to everybody in your business because again, you have to be happy and healthy in order for the business to run how it should run. Being okay with making those hard decisions,
Mhm. I
facing the
think
truth on those things.
I think for me, and this is something that's like probably really hits home for Catherine and I, is like setting the boundary of things, of like being like, hey, this is how I feel, and just being very upfront with that is like, as family running business, it's always been very hard for me to kind of articulate or like, with other people who weren't my family, like, I have no problem setting my boundaries and being like, "Hey, like, this is what I think we need to do. This is what we're gonna do." Or I can't be a part of it, or I can't do
Yeah.
A, B, and C. And I think that's been a real struggle for us, is just being able to be clear and say, "Listen, like, this isn't serving us, and, like, I
Yeah.
don't wanna keep on the path that we're on because we're not gonna be able to achieve those." And so I think being able to be open with if you are in business with someone, being very transparent in a respectful way of
Yeah.
that. And that's hard because it
Yeah.
does affect relationships on that.
Mhm.
Especially if you both aren't open to that and knowing that it's not coming from a personal stance, is coming from
Yeah.
a clear business thing of like, hey, listen, this is what, whether you have different viewpoints or whatever it is, being open and honest. Because I think what happens is when you're not, it can build resentment up. And at
Yeah.
least even if you put it out there, I mean, we got to a point where we both felt very differently. I was like, listen, like maybe we're
Not
not on the
ready.
same page and that's going to be okay. But when you tell the other person how you're truly feeling, it gives them the opportunity to take that in, give them a moment and maybe
Mhm.
come back in a week or two or, whatever, a couple days and say, okay, like, yes, I'm willing to do these things or no, I'm not. And we're just have different visions and whatever it is. So I think that's a big lesson. But if you're talking about like you're just running a business on your own, knowing when to let go of people that are not serving your business. You can like people and love them and them not be the best fit for you.
Yeah.
And you need to cut them because when you talk about business, it just does not have any realm in that. And not, I feel like there's not been many times that we've done that, but
Yeah.
when you really tied into people, like we had a manager who's with us for a while. We were very tied into her. We all liked her personally, and she had stuff going on in her life. And so you try to give these, okay, let's give her another chance on this and another chance on that. And then you turn around and your business is suffering and you can't do that. No one to pull the trigger on it and say it's
Yeah.
it's just not it's not a good fit. Be clear and concise about how one, the turnaround time that they need to fix those things and setting
Mhm.
goals and where they need to get, and then just being like, "This isn't working out," and knowing when to cut those people off.
Yep.
Okay. So those are
It's a
my
good one.
yeah. What about you, Sea Dog?
I would say the biggest Sea Dog, I like that. I would say the biggest thing for me that I've learned in this business, but also that I would encourage someone to also have going into opening any business is flexibility.
That's a good
That's
one.
a good one.
I thought I was a flexible person. Yeah, no, I wasn't. I am now. I feel like not a ton rattles me. I can go with the flow, but it took years to get there. And I think that serves you so well when you're opening any sort of business. And I think that also goes hand in hand with being open-minded.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to serve you tenfold than being closed-minded. If you're open-minded, you're open to pivot, you're open to change,
For
you're
sure.
open to when to let people go.
And
Yeah.
that's going to
So
be the
well.
thing is like knowing when to change. I'm saying, but I think being open to change with business is a top one.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I know.
And I also think accountability too, holding
Yeah.
yourself
Great one,
accountable
Bianca.
to, because not everybody can take accountability. I mean, it's hard when,
It
you
is.
fuck up and do something and you don't want to admit that, you did
No.
something wrong or whatever, but taking accountability can really help you grow.
Well, I think
in
taking accountability,
whatever.
acknowledging it, you don't have to rake yourself over the coals. You just say, I
Exactly.
fucked
Yeah.
up here. And how I'm going to show you is I'm going to change these
Exactly.
behaviors.
Mhm.
No, I think those are all really great things. I mean,
Mhm.
so many people. And again, if you guys want to dig into something further on this, we could go all day, I think, with each
Yeah.
one of these. But this just kind of gives you a top point of each section that you guys had on those questions. That's today's
Yeah.
situation.
Save.
Tap, follow, leave a review. We're trying to be famous one day. Not
Hello.
famous,
We will be.
It helps
Love-
this little podcast to do big things. And we're just trying
Literally.
to we have $1 and a dream. No,
Yeah.
but again, thank you for joining in today. And we hope that you liked this episode about business and entrepreneurship. And if there's something else, let us know. Again, tap and follow and leave a review. Thanks again for watching What's the Situation? Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fuck that shit, listen, ayy, look, cash flowing, pockets growing, wake up, bless every morning, just in case y'all didn't notice, I'm the fucking shit up in this bitch and everybody.